Yo, what is going on, Philly Sports Nation? It's me, Robert, the host of the Philly Sports Podcast. So I want to do a little bit special for you guys, and I'll have my special guest, Frank Klose, coming on to the show. So, Frank, we want to tell the audience, introduce yourself, who you are and what you do.
Well, so I've been doing the website Sports Talk Philly since 2011, sportstalkphilly.com. And then I guess this is year 6 that I've been covering the Phillies for 97.3 ESPN down the Jersey Shore. And you can watch that anywhere, or watch or listen. They actually are broadcasting the show that I do every day, each week. Well, they broadcast the show every day, but I'm on usually every Tuesday afternoon and then some. But that's a Sports Bash with Mike Gill. If you check it out at 97.3 ESPN on Twitter or 97.3 ESPN on Facebook, they are broadcasting live daily. So I encourage everybody to check that out.
So I saw in your background, you're also an assistant professor at a liberal arts college.
I am, yes. I'm at Rosemont College, and if anybody's looking to go to a good college, let me know. They are happy to talk Rosemont any day as well. So I do some cool athletic stuff there too. I do some stuff with the softball team. I'm their faculty advisor and PA announcer. So
that's pretty interesting because I thought it was just like an actual beat reporter. So I literally had to go search it myself. So that's pretty interesting.
This is 97.3, something I've been doing for. It's kind of a big hobby, I guess. So I went to college. I worked with a lot of big names in media. Dave Murphy of the Philadelphia Inquirer was a co-editor at the newspaper with me. So he did sports. I did features. so I didn't do much with sports because Dave Murphy had it under control, and Tom Namico, who's been with the New York Post and BuzzFeed, and who else? Oh, Tim McManus, not the Eagles writer Tim McManus, but for the Inquirer's Tim McManus, who covered a lot of different things for them. We had a pretty good newspaper staff in college, so a lot of them really went on to some really good stuff. So, but anyway, big long story short, I didn't pursue this right out of college, and then sort of came back to it. So, I'm kind of enjoying it, just doing it for the love of it, I guess.
Yeah. So, like the first question I want to ask you, what was Ronald Torreyes' impact? Especially being a non-roster invitee for this team.
He's the kind of guy. So every year there's a certain number of veteran type players that come in as non-roster invitees, but they sort of have some sort of handshake agreement, like behind the scenes. And I think he was one of them. The fact that he got called up last year gave the Phillies a little bit of some support. And the fact that they brought him back to camp, I thought for sure that meant that he was going to be back on this major league roster. So players like that, often with that background and sort of with that pedigree as a veteran bench type, they do agree to the minor league deal, but they also kind of understand that they're going to make the team. So the reason why that's something teams do is because you have a lot of players on your 40-man roster as camp breaks, and they usually weed some of them out. But they did it too with Brandon Kinsler. Like, he was technically a minor league signing, but I thought there was no possible way for him not to be on the opening day roster. Now, he didn't work out so great. They ended up letting him go.
Yeah.
But there's always a couple guys like that in camp where Matt Joyce was another one, right? Not necessarily guaranteed anything, but
anyway, earn that spot.
Yeah, but anyway, but Torreyes, though, like he's just been solid with the glove, and the fact that he started 3 games in a row at third is just really a sign that the Phillies really needed a defense, and he's provided that, and he's come up with a lot of clutch hits. I think that's been the one thing that it's kind of that intangible, like that you can come up to the plate in a big situation and come through. So, and he's certainly done that a lot lately. And really been responsible for a lot of these wins directly. And, Joe Girardi, someone that really believed in him, and that's why he's on the Phillies, having worked for Girardi in New York before. And so, he really believed in him, and got to give Girardi credit on this one, huh?
Yeah. And that's the thing, too. Like, I call Torreyes kind of a spark plug. And I feel like he like he's pretty good. If you put him in the starting lineup, he's also a great bench piece to have. Since we're Matt Joy's out on the 60-day IL, so you're going to have and Janikowski is another guy that I feel like he kind of stepped up a little bit. Stepped up his role coming off the bench. But with Torreyes, because obviously he was a Girardi guard in New York, but obviously was overshadowed by Gleyber Torres, and we all know how that kind of turned out. And then Torreyes was bouncing back and forth. Minnesota, I think a couple other teams, I can't remember the top of my head, but the Twins it's the only team that I knew that we picked him up from, and there's really nothing to say, but I think I'd rather keep him for the next 2 to 3 years, as a starter or in on the bench.
Yeah, he's only 28 years old, so chances are, he could be. I think back a few years ago. The Phillies, they had Andres Blanco on a minor league deal, and then he sort of came into his own in fulfilling that utility player role. So, you could see somebody like Torreyes, maybe now he's just kind of hitting his stride in that role, embracing that role, because, that's a difficult role to have. Players will often aspire to be a starter. They don't get the starting job, and then they don't know how to adapt to coming off the bench. And so sometimes it takes a while. So Andres Blanco was a very nice player off the Phillies bench for the last several years. And his fellow Venezuelan Torreyes has sort of bloomed very similarly for the Phillies. But yeah, Torreyes has actually been with the Dodgers, Yankees, Twins, and then now the Phillies. So he's been around. He's seen a lot. And that might be what makes him a pretty good utility player, is that he's had those opportunities, he was actually an original product of the Houston Astros and couldn't make that team initially. So he's someone who's seen a lot, and with that experience, I believe he's also had time with the Reds and the Cubs and the Blue Jays. So he's had some opportunities and didn't latch on at first. Got a lot of experiences that I think has kind of helped him be what he is right now.
I thought that was pretty interesting because at first, I was like really like Ronald Torreyes, but then we started realizing how Bohm is defensive is liable, whatever what's the word?
He's a liability,
yeah, liability. But ever since Bohm's been got sent down, I just feel like now Torreyes, when he's in the starting lineup, it makes everything so much smoother. And
yeah.
And another thing too, I was really hoping to at least get another first baseman at the trade deadline, which I kind of talked about too. It's the what were your expectations going to the Phillies trade deadline?
I thought you'd see kind of what you got. I didn't think that they were going to give up any top prospects. They could have, and then anybody would take their top prospects. Like for example, it sounded like the Phillies did like Craig Kimbrell, but not for the price of their best pitching prospect, Mick Abel. They're just not going to do it. So, the Phillies are at a tough spot in that. In a lot of ways, the rebuild failed. They don't have enough homegrown pieces here because, you can sign Bryce Harper, you can sign JT Realmuto, you can sign Didi Gregorius, you can sign Zach Wheel, but all these players are very expensive. So if you keep spending your money on outside players and not have enough homegrown players to fill it in, it's not really a sustainable model, right? Because not everybody is the Dodgers and can just buy whatever they need. So this year, with Dave Dombrowski taking the realm, he kind of had to make deals that would not hurt the Phillies in the long term. And so that meant that he does not want to give up his big prospects. There was never going to be a trade with Mick Abel or Bryson Stott or any of the Phillies' top prospects. And you might say, well, they traded Spencer Howard, but they actually got a pretty decent pitching prospect back in that deal as well. Besides the fact that you get Kyle Gibson for this year and next year. And Hans Kraus, the prospect they got back, immediately became the Phillies' number 4 prospect after that deal. So Dombrowski kind of had to walk this fine line. He doesn't have prospects to trade. He doesn't have a whole lot of money either because they were very much up against the competitive balance tax. So if you're not going to trade prospects and if you're not going to just agree to take somebody's money away, then you have to be really crafty, and it seems to be that's what he was. I mean, overnight, kind of the rotation changed because Ian Kennedy could take the Ranger Suarez role as closer, then Suarez could be a starter, and then you could have Kyle Gibson in your rotation, and then so that's two ex. That one deal essentially netted the Phillies two starting pitchers, and they were able to get a more experienced closer, and they were able to get a pitching prospect. So that deal itself was good. It's a real shame that the deal with the Pirates didn't work out, which was for starter Tyler Anderson. If the Phillies had Anderson right now, you'd feel a lot better about that fifth spot, even though Matt Moore pitched six no-hit innings last
Yeah.
night out of nowhere. But you'd feel a lot better about that spot if you had another starter there. And Zach Eflin, Jim Salisbury of NBC Sports Philadelphia today tweeted a picture of him or a video of him throwing batting practice to Freddie Galvis. And so it looks like he's progressing along. But you're at the point now where you can't afford to just give up a start every fifth day. Now it's a good thing that the Phillies won that one, but they lost the Wheeler start. So you can't win every time when Wheeler pitches, but you would have liked to have seen the Phillies win yesterday.
Oh,
And
definitely.
Aaron Nola's fallen off the face of the earth again. So you what? It's a real shame that the Anderson trade did not work out.
And I said this too. I kind of feel like I was really hoping the that Noah will replicate his 2018 Cy Young Canada case. You know, kind of being that technically the ace, but now obviously Wheeler's kind of taking that title away from him. I just kind of feel like I don't like exactly hate Nola, but he's just more inconsistent. He's like hot and cold. Like he's inconsistent. Like if that rain delay didn't happen in Washington, like or actually no here
Mhm.
in Philly against the Dodgers, like
It feels like right with Max Scherzer, right? That's
yeah,
like I get why you said that, but oh yeah, that rain delay just before you go on from that was a darn shame because there was a nice pitchers duel and they both looked amazing, both Scherzer and Nola, and then it just went nowhere. That's the really disappointing thing here.
oh yeah, and that's the thing too. I think I mean when I heard the Phillies were bringing back Freddie Galvis, like do we really need something like Galvis? But I looked at the bigger picture, said we're going to need a lot more bench pieces if we're going to make a huge playoff run. So say if D knocking on wood, say if D gets hurt, like you can put Torreyes there, you can probably put Galvis there. Like there's a lot of options you can do with that. And
Yeah, and,
with Bryce and Stock coming up probably next year, I think that's what his ETA is from what I've been hearing.
yeah,
And basically
sounds right.
but basically what he's kind of producing and Hodge Kraus, and I saw I was like read like a report like this. They just say he's like one of the most quirkiest pitchers that the Phillies have acquired with the Spencer Howard deal.
Yeah. He's quirky. I just Google him. Look at his wind up. It's really funky.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what makes him so interesting there. But yeah, you know what? Having on the left side of the infield the potential to have an infield of Galvis and Torreyes. Your defense is solid. I mean, Didi, he's been battling a lot in his elbow, so his defense has not been the same. And you can almost tell it day to day when Didi feels good and when he doesn't. And the days he's feeling good, he can put together some really nice games. But there's other times that he could have a really rough game, and that's just the result of him not just not being his old self. I mean, it's his elbow, right? So I can understand why that would be in fact, as we're talking, Didi just made a throwing error. You kind of understand that. So I think now, especially as you see some guys, that are ground ball pitchers on the Phillies, like Kyle Gibson is a ground ball pitcher. I think the days when you have players like that, you want to get your best possible defense out there.
Oh, definitely. And as much as like Didi and like you said, it's probably the elbow too. Like, I mean, I've dealt with injuries before as a not to my throwing elbow, but I've had days like that where like one day, like if I'm feeling good, like there's really you can't really. I mean, like you said. I mean, it depends on how DD feels, especially now. Actually, like one game when he got hit in the back of the on his right elbow, which we don't know how that's going to be, and as obviously we know that's affected him a lot. Plus, not to mention he was on the code list, I think earlier this season, if I'm not mistaken. Like, and then this applies to Scott Kingery too, and then which is a shame though. I had like higher hopes on Scott Kingery too.
Yeah, kind of the forgotten man here. Kingery, yeah. this was the year they really could have stood to have somebody. Well, here's the thing. I think they even went into this year not really knowing what he was. You know, they tried to give him the second base job last year, and essentially he lost his second base job to Alec Boehm because then that bumped Gene Segura to second base. So yeah, who knows what they have with him? I'm not on the 40-man roster anymore. There's no pressure to call him up.
Yeah,
And so I
that's
guess
true.
you're just he's just going to show up for spring training next year after having this season-ending surgery, and can't count on him. But who knows? Maybe he'll
I
surprise you.
mean, would there be a possibility he could be a part of a trade piece at some point later down the line? Like, if the Phillies really don't have any how much of a use for Kingery, like say if he can't get back or really improve his game, like after he came back from the COVID list, like he was just a completely different player than what people were hyping him up to be.
Yeah, somebody might take a shot on him, but you know, I don't know. He's worth nothing. I think if the best thing that you could possibly have happen is to see him get to camp, kind of impress somebody somewhere, and then maybe you can talk trade. But I don't think he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna have much value yet. And if you're the Phillies, you'd rather let him build that value a little bit. I mean, even if he's just showing something at spring training or AAA, because 40-man roster spots are valuable. The Phillies got some prospects they got to put in the 40-man roster spot, and the longer they don't have to put them on the roster on the roster, the better. So we will see where that goes, and but yeah, not certainly not somebody they can count on.
Yeah, that's true. But I wanted to hear your thoughts on the Phillies draft, and I've seen Phillies fans kind of complain, taking a high school pitcher like early, like in the first round. I'm thinking, especially because nowadays it's like you're seeing the new age where kids and someone like my age who are like throwing it like in the upper 90s, like you don't see like guys like Kyle Hendricks anymore, like those like the finesse pitchers are kind of has become like a lost dying breed of a pitcher in the major leagues.
Yeah, everybody kind of throws hard anymore. I mean, yeah, some more than others, but I think the thing with the way that they've approached the drafts is, they're not. To me, they didn't seem like they were trying to take a safe pick. I mean, there's different ways you can look at it. Like when the Phillies drafted Aaron Nola, it was really clear they really needed a pitcher soon. So what they kind of said was, okay, we'll draft Nola. The scouts had him as a potential number 3 starter someday, but the plus side was he's already finished 3 years of college, and that he wouldn't take that long to go through the minor leagues. So they drafted him in 2014. He's on the club in 2015, and most of the time, that kind of projection will be mostly right. That he's going to be kind of a middle of the road starter. Now, in his career, he's been better than that. But when you draft the high school pitcher, you don't know what you're getting, right? Because you're drafting that player based upon the talent, and they've had less of a chance to develop it and show something. So, because they didn't pitch in college, right? So it just makes sense that 3 years of college is probably equivalent to some of your minor league years, right? So yeah, it's kind of a long-term investment. It doesn't pay the immediate dividend like drafting Nola did, but you're really hoping that you can draft some guys that'll be really good talents. I mean, the Phillies at one point in time they drafted a whole lot of high school pitchers in a row. Think way back to the late '90s, right? So they of course at the end of the decade they drafted Pat Burrell, but before that they drafted Brett Myers, for example, who
Okay,
eventually, yeah, well,
still
he
one of
came
the still one of the greatest postseason at bats in Phillies history,
right,
hands down.
yeah, but he was a high school guy, so
Really, I thought
yeah,
he actually pitched in college.
nope, they drafted him out of high school. They drafted Cole Hamels
Interesting.
out of high school, right? And
I
in
know
neither
that Hamels out
case,
of high school.
yeah, he was out of high school in Southern California, so back in 2002. So like I think Myers was I guess 98 or 99. I think 99. I think Brett Myers and I went graduated high school the same year. Um, and then Burrow would have been 98. Yeah. So, but like 99, 2002, like that era when they were having a lot more success in their drafts, they took some chances on some of these high school pitchers. Now you could say, Hamels and Myers worked out. Carlton Lower did not. I mean, I'm just throwing out another name that might have been part of that era. But my point is, it's if you believe that you can do a good job developing the players and not relying on a college to do it for you, then that's good. And I think that Brian Barber, the new scouting director, recognizes that, and Josh Bonifay is now in charge of the minor league system, and so the two of them, it's a fresh approach. They've both only been in their jobs a couple years, and they're hoping now that they can plant some seeds that they can develop along the way and be successful in the major leagues. So I kind of like it. After the Mick Abel draft, someone asked me what I thought the Phillies would draft this year. I was like, well, he seems like he's willing to go for a hot young high school pitcher. Because here's what happens too. Like a lot of GMs, they want the immediate dividends from their draft. You need to be in it for the long haul to draft these guys. Whereas 2014, you draft Nola and he's up in 2015. Well, you look great, but how long do people have these jobs? You draft Mick Abel in 2019 and he doesn't really come out until 2024. Well, guess what? You don't see that immediate return.
Yeah, I mean, Mick Abel. I mean, as much as I paid attention to that draft class, like I knew what this kid can provide if he develops the right way. Who knows? The sky's the limit with him. Same with Andrew Painter. Like he was a little bit of an unknown because technically my to be honest, my biggest pick I want to have to Chase Petty in the system because obviously I'm from South Jersey, so that's where the kind of the Jersey bias wants to come into play.
Mm.
But I think having someone like Andrew Painter, who's about like 6'7", that could throw 95 to 97, maybe hit 99. I I just think there's something there. Just gotta take and I said this too. Like it takes time. High school pitchers, like you said, sometimes it'll take time. Some we have actually worked out like Cole Hamels, for example, Brett Myers. And even too, like we also even talk to some high school position players, throughout our history. Obviously, J-Roll coming out of it. But yeah, I mean, I kind of like what we got, up in the draft. And I think another one I think could probably make a huge impact in the future is I think Casey Martin from Arkansas. I thought that was a very solid pick in the second round, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I'm all my drafts are getting tied up together. But yeah, that was 20. Wait a second. 2020. Yeah. 2020. Third round. 2020. Yeah. Yeah. I like it. I like their approach. He's already looking good in the minor leagues. Now he was somebody who had he played at Arkansas, right? So he had a little bit of that development underway already. So that's kind of nice. Versatile player. He can play a few positions, and really it'll be a question of whether or not his bat comes around because so far at high class A Jersey Shore, he hasn't really done much with the bat yet. So we'll see if that comes around.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's like now I'm seeing like I wanted to ask this question: do you think there's a possibility that Zach Wheeler is making the case for the Cy Young Award this season? The way that he's going about it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, Jacob DeGrom was pitching unbelievably, and then he got hurt, and then he got hurt again, and then he got hurt again, and now you don't know when you're going to see him. So, I think a lot will depend on what happens down the stretch because you have all this talk now, but he's still got another like 7 starts to make this season, and that's a lot. So, I mean, if you're talking about who's most worthy today, I think he definitely has a real shot at it. The voters sometimes see a little bit too much in there's too much name recognition, right? So I think that Max Scherzer might get some votes here, especially if he pitches as well for the Dodgers as he did for the Nationals, especially as if the Dodgers steamroll into the playoffs. I think Scherzer is going to be a candidate for that too. But yeah, but he's 24 starts in. He's probably going to make. He might even make another. Yeah, I guess he could make another 8. So when you consider that's 1/3 of what he's made so far, a lot will depend on what's going on down the stretch. I mean, But some things that he certainly is making his mark on. Nobody's thrown more innings, nobody's struck out anymore. So those are things people notice. He's got 3 complete games, 2 shutouts. I mean, those things are rare in baseball anymore. So I definitely think he's right there at the top. But it's one of those things where sometimes the guy with name recognition kind of steals from the, or maybe not totally, but even gets the attention a little bit more than the guy that has not. Now Wheeler, for all the hype and the people when he got traded from the Giants to the Mets for Carlos Beltran, everybody thought the Giants were crazy. Giants won the World Series, and the Mets, they didn't get much out of him, at first. Remember, didn't pitch for 2 entire seasons, so his name was one that was buried. In 2008, 2009, he started to really put it back together. Excuse me, 18, 19, he really started to put it back together, and then you see what you see here. It's not a surprise to me that he really seemed to be trending in the right direction after all those injuries early in his career. But at the end of the day, Max Scherzer's got a name that
Yeah.
Zach Wheeler does not have. So we'll see what happens. I think if the numbers are comparable, they might go Scherzer over Wheeler.
Yeah, I mean that's where I kind of see it because I feel like if like Degrom wasn't hurt, like that's almost like a unanimous choice because of what Degrom has accomplished. But the issue is Degrom consistently getting hurt, and and I've been thinking this too, like what does the writers see anymore? Because like when the first time Degrom won the Cy Young, like he had not a good win loss record, but he still got a good enough votes to win the NL Cy Young. Like, does that any like category will apply to that anymore nowadays when it comes to Cy Young voting?
You're really kind of at the whims of the voters. I mean, there's been plenty of years that it's almost. Try to find the best way to say it. It's kind of unpredictable in some ways. You don't really know what you're going to get out of the voters any given year. They all don't see everybody equally. That's my big worry if you're rooting for Zach Wheeler. Um, Degrom, I think he was the name that everybody knew, as you just said, and they just knew that he was the best pitcher in baseball, and that bias is something which will get you a long way in the awards that people vote for. I mean, remember years ago the Gold Gloves? That who was it? Rafael Palmeiro was mostly a DH the one year. They give him the Gold Glove at first base. They're not watching every single game, right? So they don't know any better. But
Yeah,
but Degrom, I think he's got the name recognition, and he was certainly poised. But if at the end of the year he makes just the 15 starts he does, can't give him the Cy Young.
yeah, that's true. But and that's the thing too. I think, and over the years, like I mean, I really never liked them as, but there were some players through that organization I actually had high respect for, especially Piazza himself. Kind of watched his backstory. How he had to come to be as a major league player, and yeah, I mean, Piazza, like players like Piazza, like I enjoyed watching growing up. Even though I despise the Mets with everything else, but obviously, the Mets are also always dealing with injuries. Well, now Connor's really not that much of a bad owner, but um, I just don't think where people or like Mets fans are kind of just hyping this team up on. I mean, don't get me wrong. That organization has good players on paper, but the only issue that I see running into is like players like their star pitchers like what Syndergaard could have been if he stayed healthy. Degrom, same thing. I mean, he's already a star anyway, so the health issue is what I feel like is holding some of these players back, and I just feel like some organizations really need to take this kind of seriously. Like you need to reevaluate. Especially nowadays, as the soft tissue damage injuries are like really taking baseball by
Mm.
storm.
Yeah, good. Yeah, very very good point you have there. But yeah, the Mets though, the Mets are the Mets. you know, I, I even said this on the air a few times this year. Like when you start to worry about the Mets as a playoff contender, I'm like, at the end of the day, the Mets are going to be the Mets. Something will go wrong. Somebody will underperform. It just Yeah, that's just how it goes for them, right? So
Yeah.
it's just unbelievable though with that collection of talent that they have now one more.
Yeah, I mean it's like us. I know, like we all know how we're critical of ours because, like, number one, like we don't want to go over the tax threshold. Like, other big market teams like the Dodgers, who, man, like now last time I checked, I think they were like 200 and not almost 300 million, if I'm not mistaken, for their payroll. But I know they're willing to spend that whatever percentage of that tax, to get the best players, like you said. And I kind of feel like we need, like us. I think we need like to learn from the Dodgers, like how to develop like players properly. And obviously, see like players like Gavin Lux kind of bursted onto the scene for them. Dustin May actually kind of liked because he made Manny Machado look like an idiot. What's another one? Will Smith is a good catching prospect. Well, when he was a catching prospect for them, he actually turned out pretty well for them. Like that's what I'm like. That's the thing. Like,
Hey,
I
don't
just
forget.
what's
I
that?
was gonna say Corey Seager
Oh,
and
I forgot about.
Cody Bellinger. They were homegrown guys. Chris
Yeah,
Taylor. I mean, Kike Hernandez. They seem to have come up with a lot of really good players. And see, that's well, yeah, they throw a lot of money now, but that's really kind of how they got going. Were those hometown talents because as the Billingers of the world are coming up, you don't have to pay them a lot of money, and so yeah, you could replace them with somebody expensive, but you need that. I mean, even the Dodgers, who are spending a fortune, and are spending $40 million for Trevor Bauer not to pitch. I mean
exactly. Like,
they need those guys.
yeah, exactly. And I didn't really want to bother making a video on it because, like, don't want to like spread misinformation because you never know what's going to come out, and I can understand why sometimes Barrow's probably the most hated player in baseball, other than Manny Machado and all that, how Machado is, in years past. But I just feel like, like you said, the Dodgers are spending a fortune, and some of the homegrown guys like Seager, Bellinger, Chris Taylor. Right. Obviously, you still got Pujols at first. I don't know how much that's going to last. But I have a feeling where if you want to, and I kind of, but I just feel like I feel like they're kind of they're do that Moneyball tactic, try to buy like a ton of wins, the way that the Oakland A's did back then. That's just what I'm seeing from the Dodgers.
Yeah, Andrew Friedman was always very, very successful with the Tampa Bay Rays, and he was really good with developing players and with making sure that he used the resources well. And people used to always say, "Man, if this guy's got money, look out with what he could do." So he's kind of been living in both worlds, and yeah, I think Bauer is the least liked player in the game, but I'm not going to comment on his personal situation. But I mean, they're in a situation where if that was a mistake, they can eat that money. So imagine that,
Exactly.
making a $40 million mistake. Now, this next couple of years are a little bit less. I think they're only in the 30s, but they're on the hook for 2 more years after this. And but yeah, he always seems to find the way to get the young talent, and then eats the money. I mean, even now, it's like Cole Hamels is like
Now going
a
back to
total shot in the dark, and
yeah.
they have the money to throw. So what the heck?
Obviously, bringing back Cole Hamels back to the Southern California, so at least bring it back to his home roots. Which it pains for us as Phillies fans. We really needed like, at least a decent lefty in the rotation, but obviously we got stuck with Matt Moore, obviously. But my thing is just like if Matt Moore can do what he did, do like do like a no hitter on a consistent basis, maybe then there's a possibility where I think I actually had to change my point of view on it because of him and Chase Anderson. But obviously, Matt Moore, the journeyman, going through Japan last year, people kind of critical of them. I was at one point, but I just feel like there's something there for a guy in his 30s. I think there's some value still left in the tank for Matt Moore.
Yeah, last year the thing that he that made him unique, that I think that they thought this was worth a shot for $4 million, was that By the way, $4 million gets you like a middle of the road reliever, right? So,
Yeah,
what I think that their perspective was, and here was kind of the unique thinking, is that last year Matt Moore pitched in Japan, and while he was there because they had COVID a little bit better under control, he pitched more innings than any major league pitcher in the United States last year. So they thought, okay, well, maybe he's a little bit, he can endure a little bit more than everybody else. So hasn't totally been the case. I will say I've liked Matt Moore's attitude. He's not somebody who, Vince Velasquez would often think, well, I just made a mistake here, I just made a mistake there. Willing to not willing to accept any responsibility for how he did. But yesterday after the game, I mean, Matt Moore just seemed grateful for the opportunity to pitch. He seemed happy to help his teammates, not concerned with himself, but he said, except for the fact that at times he kind of let his team down and didn't pitch as well as he should have been. So I saw, he'll be an interesting person down the stretch. When he pitched out of relief, he threw a 96-mile-an-hour fastball,
yeah,
which was not something he normally does. So,
not
who
since when he
knows?
was not since when he was in his prime.
Yeah, so
No,
like maybe if you let him in the bullpen and he only needs to pitch an inning and he can just unleash.
exactly.
Sometimes when you're starting, you feel like you need to save your energy, whereas you come in for just 3 outs with him, boom, you just go after it. Um, so something to think about.
And that's the thing too. Like now looking at it from right now, since we have Matt Moore and Bryce Harper, I was looking at this years ago. The top prospect rankings. Where I think it was in 2000 in the early 2010s. Matt Moore was a, and I was looking on that side. This cannot be right. Like, there's no way Matt Moore is one. And you got Harper two, and you got Trout three.
Yep.
You got two of the best players in baseball, but you have Matt Moore on top as the number one overall prospect
Yeah,
in
at one
baseball.
point he was up there, and by the way, he looked really good at the beginning of his career for Tampa Bay. So it seemed like he was going down that right path, but so it goes sometimes.
Yeah, it does. It's like, and I'm thinking to myself, it's like you said, I think I mean, Matt Moore's been around the block a few times for the last, since his early days in Tampa. I think he's our, obviously he's a true a veteran's veteran, and actually understand, like say if he, let his team down, like he'll say, look, I know I let my team down, but I want to try to at least improve to help get my team to where I want to be. That responsibility, like you said, that's not then what Velasquez wants to show. But in the other hand, like I would rather rock with Matt Moore in the rotation or in the bullpen. And at times he may be consistent, sometimes he's not. And same with Velasquez. Velasquez is a whole different ball game altogether. Like he just doesn't want. It's like it's like a domino effect with him. Like he's just keep going on the decline. And what still annoys me is just like I actually enjoyed when Ken Giles was here, and I kind of thought like when Ken Giles was on the free agent market one year, I was thinking if I'm Dombrowski, you and then don't get me wrong. I mean, Kyle Giles I think had his better years of his career, and I think we should have at least brought him back like a year or two to help with the bullpen.
Yeah, I think that might have been a possibility if he didn't get hurt. But I don't know. When he was. By the way, they were looking to just get rid of him at one point. I mean, he has had one of the all-time worst attitudes in baseball. What was the one time he injured himself, like just like
I
throwing a
think he,
temper tantrum
I
after
think he
giving up
punched
some runs to
himself.
the Yank? Yeah, he just that's right, he punched them. Like he just looks so immature. And by the way, when he was a Philly and Ryan Sandberg, I have never seen Ryan Sandberg get angry except for the time that Ken Giles like sort of like talked smack to him. Because that was literally the only time I ever saw him angry. just the image of Sandberg unloading on Ken Giles. I was like, okay, this guy is not going to be around for long,
And obviously,
because just being very disrespectful. I mean, you're a punk rookie. You just shut up and you do what you're told. I mean,
exactly.
that's how it works. This is the big leagues. But who cares how fast you throw? If you're ignoring the game plan, well, then you're not a team player and you don't belong there. So,
I mean, obviously, we got what we got in return for him was Velasquez, Mark Appel. Obviously, And as much, obviously, Mark Appel tried to make a comeback. I think if he can do the right things, and the fact that Mark Appel retired at such a young age is really a shame to see. What he could have been in the major leagues.
Well,
But
he's
I kind of,
back.
yeah, I heard that. But I feel like nowadays it's like like I've seen pictures like one year, like years, like they have like the one case of the yips, like when John Lester, when he transitioned to the National League and 2015, 2016 to the Chicago Cubs, like he's like he never threw over to first base, and it just really never. I just really never saw that because I've always accustomed seeing with Oakland, Boston, they're in the American League, and now the fact that he has now transitioned to the National League during that time, I feel like that it was kind of a little bit hard for him to really get a good footing. Obviously, winning his third World Series ring in 2016. But yeah, I just wanted to, because I just feel like I think it was just probably the yips. I probably would have kept Mark Appel away, but I just hope to see if he can produce what we thought he would be. Especially coming out of Stanford.
Hey, he threw 6 shutout innings the other day, so
Really?
yeah, maybe you'll at AAA. Maybe you'll see him again. Who knows? There's an opportunity. If he's hanging around, so maybe he will get that opportunity, but we'll
Oh,
see.
oh yeah. But yeah, I just feel like as this team, like, do you think we can at least add where do we where are your thoughts where we stand right now as our entire organization? Like, do we need to add pieces, subtract pieces? Like where do you want to see this team going down the road?
Um, well, Dave Dombrowski needs to kind of shake this roster up a little bit more. I tend to think that Aaron Nola will not be back next year. There needs to be some source to sort of get a bunch of prospects. He's going to be a free agent after next year. He was inconsistent enough this year that you don't really know if it's worth investing a multi-year high dollar contract on him. So I could see him being moved. I think you'll see. Of course, you have Odubel Herrera and Andrew McCutcheon leaving as free agents, and then you got to figure out what to do with Bohm and Hoskins, neither of whom can field their positions. So I think there's going to be a lot of movement here. I think that Dombrowski is going to try to find a way to bring some youth onto the roster. He might plug some, or not necessarily onto the roster, but into the organization. He might plug some holes with some under the radar free agents, and I don't expect him to necessarily make a big free agent splash. But I can see him making a bunch of deals, just to sort of mix up the dynamic here. Like the Flyers. The Flyers, they actually. Um,
They actually did a pretty good offseason.
yeah, but
I feel like having Chuck Fletcher, when Chuck Fletcher took over, I had a good feeling that this team was going in the right direction.
right
Even
because
though I
remember
really
Fletcher.
don't, even though I don't watch Flyers as much as I really want, if I really hoped.
Yeah, so Chuck Fletcher, he flat out said like this collection of players wasn't working, so we got to mix it up, right? I mean, he didn't say that the players that we had were bad, and you moved some of them, but yeah, he kind of said we need to try to find another dynamic here, and I think that in some respects that needs to happen coming from Dave Dombrowski here. So I think it could be a busy off season. I mean, this is him getting a chance to really see what he has, what he doesn't have, and I can see him making some kind of moves that might surprise people. They might not like him at first, but he's got a track record, so I think he's got the opportunity to really make this his own, and on Matt Klintak's roster that he had a little bit of time to put a couple pieces together for.
Yeah, but like this year, it's going to be like a shortstop heavy class with a couple good first basemen coming on the market. Freddie Freeman is going to be a free agent after this year, so and if I were the Phillies, I would would look to have at least one veteran guy in the mix, like someone like a Freddie Freeman type of player, especially for first base, who can fill this position, who can give you a constant production. Hoskins can do that, but the only issue is with him and Bohm are the lack of defense. And I'm hoping, like, say, if you could bring in someone like Freddie Freeman, who could give you both sides, like offense and defense. I feel like this really going to. I think like on a 1 year deal and like a prove it deal. I think that's really going to at least strengthen that first base spot. Shortstop. My ultimate idea was to acquire Trevor Story because obviously obviously with Trevor Bryce's stock coming up in 2022, and we don't know how much longer Didi's going to be here. There's got to be something. We got to and like you said, McCutcheon's leaving, Adubel's leaving, possibly moving Nola to get something in return. Yeah, like you said, I mean Dombrowski really needs to, and I mean I know when he came in, like this was pretty much a hot mess for what Clintek has done since when Clintek took over in 2015. Having Kyle Gibson, having him for the next season, I think that's really going to help bolster the starting rotation. And I think really, and I will say this thing about Eflin too. Like when he got traded here to Philly, at the time, he was inconsistent, but I saw that he had flashes to where I think he could be a solid number 3 in the rotation, and he's really proved that too. Despite the short season last year, obviously, I think you should at least move Wheeler up to the number 1 spot. If you're going to move on from Nola, I think you got to start moving some pitchers up in the rotation.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I would imagine he'd bring some in too. It'll be. I can't even predict. I feel like Kyle Gibson is kind of the kind of guy that he gets. The one that kind of is under the radar, but it's a good fit. So, I think this is going to be not the easiest thing to really figure out. I mean, maybe there's some teams that will make it that are willing to make a trade. Certainly, there's a number of starters on the free agent market. Nobody. For example, like Max Scherzer, do you throw money at him for a year and try to win? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, he got traded during the year. There won't be a draft pick attached.
Yeah.
Which is a big, big. What am I gonna say? Like a blocking point for it's a disincentive to sign a lot of these players. So who knows? I'd be really interesting to see what this is. I don't think Freeman's going to sign for 1 year. Somebody will give him multiple years, even though he's 32. I think
he's 32. I think he'll be entering his 33 season next year.
Someone will give him 4 years. Somebody will. I don't know who, but somebody will. I'm always I'm always surprised.
Yeah, and that's like you said, and I want to bring up Bohm too. Like, I mean, I thought I actually like the kid, but the problem is though is his defense. Like as from a fielding infielder's perspective, like I just facepalm like at the most simplest things, like you're at the big leagues. Like this should be and score. It's like screwed into your brain, like as a young kid, starting up, but. And that's the thing too. Like now we're in the day of launch angle. Like that, the fact that you missed 3 fastballs right down, right down Broadway, and you still, it kind of tells you like something really needs to change.
Yeah, I think Alec Bohm will be in left field. I think that was the only, in a way that I thought that was always the plan. The problem with small sample sizes is you don't always know. I think they thought he'd be passable at third base after 2020. The longer sample size shows he's not. So
can I just feel like I'd rather keep him down a year, try to or at least hopefully this offseason he needs to like work with Larry Bowa, try to get the fundamentals back into what
he just might not be able to. I think his future is in the outfield. I really do. I actually even said this on the radio when he came up. Like, you get through this year and next year, then McCutcheon's a free agent, and then you have left field open. I don't see him doing well with ground balls to his left or right. I think he'll be fine with balls in the air.
That's a very good point though, because like the pop ups in the infield, like he has no problem with that though. But if like you do stick him in the outfield, like how is he going to do well with the grounds? Like, say there's a base hit right on the ground. Like, he's going to field that? You
I
know,
mean, there's plenty of time to get set for something like that. So I think that will be the first place they look to put him. That's just my personal opinion. Then they have to fill a spot in the infield. Could it be with Bryce and Stott? Could it be with somebody else? Who knows? I mean,
I mean,
and
obviously, you
I think
probably
you
still
want to
have
get.
Ronald Torreyes that can
I think
fill that spot.
I don't think he'll be a starter, but I think you want Torreyes because then somebody else gets hurt, then you have nobody
Exactly.
to plug in.
He's an emergency guy.
So you maybe find a really good. You focus on getting a really good center fielder. Put Bowman left, and then
You got Harper and right.
yeah. Then you try to find some good defense for your infield. I mean, if there's a DH, maybe you're adding a first baseman and third baseman.
Yeah.
um,
And
we'll
that and
see.
yeah, I'm really hoping too because I have always liked the idea of having a universal DH because I saw at the beginning of this season, like I think Degrom got hurt one time, which he has like shoulder problems. After the last year we had the technically the short version of the universal DH. I'm thinking to myself like we need to keep some pitchers healthy because if they haven't swung a bat, since with this pandemic started, like that's really going to do a little bit. It's going to do damage to their body. So I'm kind of all in favor, and I've been critical about Manfred too, and the different rule changes because I also follow the when they did the partner with the independent league. So I follow like the Southern Maryland Blue Crabs, and when I heard one day they were moving the mound back another foot, I'm thinking to myself like, does that really make any sense? I mean, I get it. I know most people can't hit the fastball, but I just don't really see the ideal behind that. The DH, I thought that was an interesting idea. I mean, obviously, kind of change it up a bit. The pace of play, really kind of. I understand the pace of play. Want to speed the game up, but I just feel like having especially the runner second base, the extra inning rule. Really, I think that really just takes away. And I was talking to a whole group of friends of mine. We were kind of doing a discussion about this. It's like, number one, that's a cheap, easy win if you're the home team or the away team, depending on the situation. Um, I just don't really like the runner on second base because that's kind of like an unfair advantage to either side.
Here's my thought. Well, one, there's two things I want to say. First is one, I don't personally love the DH. I really prefer the strategy. However, we're at the point where I think it's just time, and here's why. I've taught high school, I've taught college. Your best players on any level that are pitching don't hit. So someone doesn't hit in high school, they don't hit in college, then they get drafted, they don't hit in the minor leagues. Well, then all of a sudden you're going to have them bad in the major leagues. I think that's the unfortunate thing here. If they're not hitting all the way up, then unfortunately, it's time to have the designated hitter, and it just is what it is. Again,
Oh
not what I
yeah,
like, but I think that it's just you have to now. Even though I've kind of come around to that perspective, especially as I've seen more and more leagues go to the DH, and yeah, they're just not growing up. I'll say growing up, but they're not progressing through systems and leagues, even in high school and college while batting. So it is what it is.
yeah. I mean, I've been part of that too. Like even in high school, freshman year, I actually got DH for. So like, I had no problems with that because literally, because I mean, obviously, I'm a pitcher. The weakest hitting it was never my strong suit, and and because at the time, this is really, and I really never thought about this till now. So it's like, I think having a DH in the National League, number one, I think it could lessen injuries on the pitchers who haven't swung on a bat, like you said, haven't progressed through the minor leagues, but just focus on one thing. But now all of a sudden, like say you're in the National League, which is the only exception because they never had the DH rule in the 160 plus year history. You see like pitchers like DeGrom had to go on the IL for shoulder problems. Even some position players too. It's like mostly pitchers because I mean, what can he take away? For the very exception, like he had like guys, Zach Greinke and Mad Bum. The only two really decent hitting pitchers in baseball. Like, I mean, what's the goal of that?
I'm sorry. Just what I just want to make sure I get your question right. You're
Yeah, I'm saying, like if we do have the DH, like what does that, work with the hitting pitchers like Zach Greinke, who can handle
oh,
the
okay.
bat
I'm
well?
sorry. Yeah, yeah. Oh, remember? Yeah, Madison Bumgarner, of course, was he used to. I think actually once or twice he DH'd for himself, right? Um, I mean, they'd still have the option if they're that good. Now, I guess it would be a matter of does the organization have a better option? I mean, Shohei Otani's going to hit no matter what.
Yeah, I mean that's
So, but I mean, at the end of the day, what's probably going to happen? You might say, well, yeah, Mad Bum's a great pitcher, as it always was, and now in the National League, he might pinch hit once in a while for when the bench gets thin.
oh yeah,
But and in the same way, Vince Velasquez pinch hits once in a while when the bench gets thin. But at the end of the day, if they're your top pitchers, you want to protect them, right? You don't want them to be they you don't usually if you need to grab a pitcher to be a pinch runner or something like that, you don't put your ace on there, right? The Phillies, unless they were super 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 stuck, they're not going to send Zach Wheeler out as a pinch runner or a pinch hitter. Why? Because that's an opportunity for them to get hurt. So I think even if they are a decent hitting pitcher, they're still going to favor the DH because it protects them and protects their arm. Because essentially, at the end of the day, you're paying them to pitch, not to hit.
yeah, and that's the thing too. And like, I just want to see what the upcoming CBA. I think the CBA is soon to be expiring. I'm not entirely too
And
sure on
yeah, at
that.
the end of the season.
So at the end of the season, so I'm really hoping what they're going to discuss, because what I want to see go on is the extra inning rule, because I don't know, I don't know, it just sets me, it just doesn't, I just really, I don't like it, because like, number one, like that's more like, if you're a pitcher, like you're putting more stress on that, like that makes it a whole much more lot worse. Like, even like for, especially if you're a closer, by all means, or if you have someone you're like, obviously, um like, like you said, the Phillies could possibly, they have a couple guys that can close. But when the situation really, when you had that situation with the runner on second, like it really put your nerves to the test. So I really want to see that, away from the game of baseball.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of who's out there to be a closer. I mean, I've I think that in terms of closers this offseason, someone's going to need to either be creative, like the Rangers were to make Ian Kennedy a closer, or you're going to have some trades. Like, I mean, by the way, there's just not many closers anymore in this game. You ever notice that?
Exactly.
I mean, I
Yeah, I've
mean,
noticed that. Like the true closers, like other than Chapman, he still closes every now and again. But it's just like
yeah,
everything. Like people who are setup men, oftentimes you get thrown in that closer's role. Take Hector Neris for example. Even though he was a closer, but in reality he was a setup man. Obviously, you could show you seen the transformation of what Neris would have become.
yeah. So like, um, who am I thinking of? Craig Kimbrell, Mark Melanson, Chapman. It's really hard to name like a bunch of like lockdown closers. Like Liam Hendricks, eventually got himself a free agent closer contract, right?
Yeah,
So I think it's really weird game right now in that there's just not people out there. I feel like part of the problem is the ones that are often able to be the kind of they're super talented closer types. They're starting out of necessity. So, it used to be the closer kind of emerged from somebody that wasn't good enough to be in your starting rotation. Now
like
that pitching
the
is
way
so thin,
I want to add to that, because the one guy that popped in my head was Mo Rivera, and what he has accomplished in his 20-year career. The guy who never really turned out as a starter. Well, once he got moved to the bullpen as a closer, like everything just went smooth sailing from there. And same with Trevor, like Mo Rivera and Trevor Harper. You don't see guys like that anymore nowadays. I mean, you still got Alvarado, sometimes Diego Castillo, Mark Melanson, Chapman, guys like that. But like you said, nowadays it's hard to find a closer.
Yeah, so you got to be creative. Ian Kennedy, former 21 game winner. It's what you got as your closer these days.
I mean, not gonna lie. I mean, he actually did. I mean, at times, certain situations it even gets nasty, but I actually kind of enjoy. I mean, it was pretty. I mean, he does get it out of it because I think having Kennedy as a close. I mean, obviously, I prefer Alvarado because nowadays you're seeing closers, having higher velocity. Even Kennedy too. For in his early 30s, he still get it up there like between 95, 96. It's um, like you don't really. I don't know. It's just like at times, I mean, I've been very critical of the bullpens. Like okay, so what do we have to tweak? In certain spots. Like if it, like a long man, setup, middle reliever, closer, like whatever the case may be. Because obviously, Archie Bradley is pretty much actually doing pretty good in his role, but and that's the thing too with these high velocity guys is sometimes the lack of control. Take Alvarado for example from the left side, with the sink like a triple digit fastball, his sinker and all that. Where's that good? Like, where do you want to like? I mean, did you think he was could be a possibility when he got traded here to Philly as a closer?
Yeah, I did actually. I thought that he might be the guy they go to. But you know what though? There's something to be said this day and age. I mean, if you look at the Phillies bullpen right now, who do you think is the best bet to get outs? Archie Bradley's probably your answer, right?
Yeah,
So
Archie Bradley's because he's been the most consistent reliever that the Phillies had.
so if you're facing the inning where you're going to face Juan Soto and the heart of the Nationals order, or you're facing Pete Alonso, in the heart of the Mets order. If you're facing Freddie Freeman in the heart of the Braves order, do you
Or
want
the heart,
Archie
or the
Bradley
yeah.
against them or your designated closer? Right? I mean, I'm totally cool with somebody like that coming in the seventh inning, eighth inning, wherever they come up. Just to make
I
sure
mean,
they get.
and that's the thing too. Hector Neris has done that too, so he's actually shown. And I feel like since he's been taking, Neris has brought out that close role, and being like the seventh, like sixth, seventh, eighth, the setup. I feel like that's
Mhm.
where he's starting to thrive. He's really having that especially now having adding a couple more pitches to his arsenal. I think that's really what's going to help him probably grow even further as a reliever, which is surprising to say because I wasn't really a Neris fan because he get at the time he gave me at times when we had Antonio Bastardo when he was in the bullpen it's just he was one. I thought it was like maybe he's going to be one of these relievers that's not going to work out, and and like more of the recent stretch, I mean he's been kind of been on being like a dominant reliever, one of the dominant relievers.
Yeah, he's been very good in those middle innings. Of course, today he gave up a 2-run home run, which Phillies lost by 3. But
I mean, which
um,
is, I mean, I'm not too bad. Like, if it's like, like, say we did that in the close role, maybe that's a whole different thing. But you also got to think too, like, I mean, he hasn't done that in how long he's been out of the closer role, which
yeah,
is
it's been
very,
a while.
yeah. So it's like, I'm not too worried. I'm not really too worried about that because obviously, he's got a good devastating splitter, which, and not the fact that he's not bringing back, or actually, his fastball command I think when he was in the closer role, I feel like that kind of disappeared when he was as a closer. But now being like in the middle innings, like he really got that fastball. Now actually, finally, actually, hit the high 90s, like 94, 95, occasional 96 every now and again. Like where you really need to rear back and get one.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But this is a funny game. Relievers are funny. They have good years, they have bad years, they have good halves of a season, poor halves of a season. They're
Yep.
just kind of a wild card.
And it's the same thing when we had Jake Diekman over here. And I thought for as quirky as he was, I thought he was pretty solid for us that when he during his time here in Philly.
Yeah, he was part of that Hamels deal. So with the idea that he helped enrich that trade, right? And he's been a very very nice reliever in the major leagues, and he's out there in Oakland pitching pretty well this season.
Yeah, that's just like now you see guys like Kyle Gibson, who I think having one of the best years of his career. Same with Ian Kennedy too. Like because I still remember when Ian Kennedy was just a horrible start, but he was an okay reliever at one point. I think the Royals turned him to a reliever before he started bouncing around to different teams. I'm not
That,
mistaken.
no, that was a recent thing. I mean, he was a
So that
21
was
game. Yeah, Ian Kennedy was a 21 game winner. He was traded for Max Scherzer at one point in his career. Someone someone thought more of him than Scherzer, about what the Diamondbacks did actually. But no, he sort of had to reinvent himself as he got older. The idea was, this year he kind of signed a minor league deal with the chance to be in the bullpen. So he's up. As he's gotten older, then he's had to change what he does. This is a guy that used to be a guy who started 30 plus games every year, and then in Kansas City, yeah, he made that transition. But that's kind of relatively recently in his career. So in a way, being a reliever was kind of new to him at this point, but. He showed enough with the Rangers that the Phillies thought that he was worthy of acquisition at the deadline.
and I thought it was I think him and getting him Kyle Gibson, which I already knew that the Phillies were, and like I think one or two other teams were making a push for him, but I feel we had some pieces to give up in order to get starting pitching help in the rotation, bullpen help, and a possible and a good pitching prospect.
Yeah, no, that was solid all around. It kind of helped you three different ways, the now and later. I really like that trade.
I mean, even though I wish the Phillies could have done more, but I can understand where I know they don't want to go over the tax threshold, but I think right now, I think what Dabrowski's did at the deadline is say, look, okay, so this, well, okay, look, so I got some good pitchers, possible with the possible, Hans Cross could probably be a possible superstar in the near future. Then you got Kyle Gibson, ground ball pitcher, having I think one of his best seasons of his career. Then you have Ian Kennedy, who, like you said, reinvented himself as a closer, having a good season. Like then we got Kyle Gibson next. We only have him for one more season. And I don't know if Kennedy's a free agent after this year. He is. But I think, like you said, help us three ways in one. I feel like that's like the first step, before try to pick the pieces, try to fix what Clentech has broken. Obviously we not the greatest farm system in the majors, but we have some good stars coming through, like Andrew Painter. I think Mick Abel's probably going to have the most high potential. Same with Bryson Stott, because obviously his funny relation with Bryce Harper,
Mm-hmm.
with Vegas boys.
Got a good mentor, so we'll see. I mean, there could be a spot in the Phillies infield for Stott next year.
Yeah, because and I said this, and I made a few of this too. It's like say if Didi doesn't want to, or if we really don't, if we're are lacking shortstops. I mean, I think you probably. I mean, your best option is do you call up Stott, or do you have to go out on the free agent market and find who's available? Do you? What kind of situation would they say if you were the GM? Where do you want to see? As they say, there's a lack of depth at shortstop. Where do you want to go? Do you want to go call up Bryson Stott, or do you want to go in the free agent market?
I would trade DD and try to get Stott as my shortstop. That's what I would do for next year. Um, will somebody want Didi? Who knows? I don't know that his contract is going to be tradable. So Stott might have to hang around and wait for the first injury to get a spot. But again, it all depends. I mean, there's going to be so much movement this offseason. It could be anywhere.
Exactly. That's the message. You also got the September call up, so there's a possibility he could probably
Well, not anymore. They took that away. No,
really.
you can only add two players. So most teams will add their third catcher and add a pitcher.
And that's the thing too. Well, the one catching prospect, Marshawn, I thought he has some good potential. Obviously we got Roberto and Andrew Knapp. Even though at one point I was very critical and saying, okay, we're going to need a solid backup. No, this at the time before we resigned Real Muto, like who are we going to have who can match the same skill set as Real Muto? And obviously,
I think for the Phillies, the backup catcher is the least important position on the roster. If you got Real Muto, you're going to catch less than anybody anywhere. So I don't think that's a worry personally.
yeah, that's true. But I just kind of feel like Andrew Knapp actually kind of reinvented himself a little bit. You know, like kind of being the guy, one of the catchers. Like he was very critical. All of us were critical of at one point. Kind of, I think he's got like basically. I think learning for. I think having Real Muto, I think is really helping uh, Knapp kind of learn a little bit more. And just doing the small things.
Yeah, Knapp had a really good year last year. This year isn't so great, but again, the way that the system was last year, he got to play more. They had the DH. They even mixed Real Muto into first base a little bit. It just it's when you play as little as you do, because JT Real Muto is your catcher, it's hard to stay sharp. So if they have a prospect in Marchand, maybe somebody will trade for him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we all know. Even with Marshall, we also have David Gruon. I mean, we also traded him to got rid of him to Boston,
Well,
and
he's 4 teams later. I don't think people care for him that much.
yeah, I remember people were very judgmental on this. Yeah,
His bat is good. His catching ability is not. So, he's been on like four. In fact, I even think he was with one team twice since then. But he's been bouncing around. These catchers, because he catches, he will continue to bounce around because everybody always needs a backup catcher or an emergency in the case of an emergency. And so, but I'm not too worried about Davy Grullon at this point.
and like when I heard about the Marlins are shopping, to get rid of when they're doing that fire sale, get rid of Christian Yelich, Stanton, which a lot of, and I know a few Yankees fans that they don't like him there because number one, he's like the only issue is he can't stay healthy because of his body size, and it's like no matter what Stanton does, is like like the smallest play, like he's one of hurt himself, like and we. I just made the statement like his body's probably made of glass. He's just so fragile for a guy, about what 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". I don't know how tall Stanton is.
Yeah.
Um, But when I heard one about teams are trading for JT Realmuto, the fact that we kind of snuck under the radar and stole him away from a lot of teams is like I was just confused as hell. I was like, really? I was thinking high market teams would want to give trade for Realmuto, but the fact that which is
Yeah, they
I was just not shocked, but I was confused that we
they
snuck under
met,
the radar.
I didn't think Stanton was a good acquisition because by then he has already signed to that deal that he's not playing up to. But I would have liked to see them get Yelich. Supposedly they didn't want to trade Odubel Herrera. That was the holdup. Um, so I
Yeah,
mean, at least they got one guy from the Marlins
yeah. I
out of
mean,
the many fire sales.
yeah, and that's the thing too. Like we did get Yelich. Like this team could have been a whole lot different. No, what? And not the fact that if we're gonna have him and Harper in the outfield, you got possibly two top MVP caliber players in the outfield. Obviously now Andrew McCutcheon that was at one point with the Pittsburgh Pirates in 2013. God, I'm really dating myself back here. I know Harper had it in 2015, so at least we had a couple MVP players on this team. And yeah, like you said, obviously we took JT Realmuto. I mean, after the shortened season last year, like obviously, it was on the catcher hold. I mean, the only two big catchers on the market was I think him, Realmuto, and McCann at the time, because I know Grandal was still under contract for the next couple of years with the White Sox. I have no idea.
Yeah, I can't remember what's left. Two more after this. I think
And
it's two.
I think it could be two. I might be wrong. But obviously, Mets. I mean, like you said, the Mets are going to Met. Obviously, they took McCann over Muto, and we get and I kind of said something. Like the kind of caliber player that Real Muto is, and I made this idea too. Like catchers nowadays, like Yachty, who in the as they age, like they kind of decline. Like obviously Yachty's a perfect example because he's been with the one team since 2000, which is hard to say. Like nowadays, it's like baseball, like even in like professional sports, like you can't get loyalty anywhere. I mean, which is rare
Yeah,
now.
it's true. Hey, this is a performance oriented business. You either perform or you're not there.
I mean,
Simple as that.
he's already making a case. I mean, to be honest, I think he's already a Hall of Famer for what he's accomplished in his career. Like, I mean, what else? What else can you say out of Yachty? Obviously, from the Molina brothers were all catchers. But yeah, I mean, like I say, but I think Real Muto, I think could be the exception because he's so athletic. Like you can really, I think his game probably won't decline. I mean, there's going to be like a slight decline, but it's not too much of a difference to where the performances where it's not going to be impacted. Like when Buster Posey, when he got hurt in the when all that, because I remember Buster Posey when he was a power hitting catcher. Then when he had that thumb injury that one year, and just all of a sudden it just stopped. Like that power production just completely vanished. Now he's bringing that back. That's the thing too. It's just like how much longer are catchers going to be in this league? Like Yachty, like how much do players like Yachty, like how much do you have left in the tank before you hang it up?
Hey, every once in a while, there's somebody who surprises you, and he's it. I thought he would have been done by now, but hey, what the heck?
Same with Poole. I thought Pujols would have been done. I mean, obviously all the accolades he's put up. Because I asked this question to a few buddies of mine. Do you think there's a possibility he can break the home run record, or at least get close to it?
Yeah, this is probably it for him though. He is slowing down, but he's signed to a lot of money, so he's going to play. But when this season's up, I don't know if he's going to get a job again. I mean, he's 42 at this point, or he's going to be 42 this offseason.
I think he's 42 going. I think he should be next year. He's going to be his 43 season if he plays.
Yeah, so I think he's about done.
Because I was really hoping, because all the hype that Pujols has brought, and that's the thing too. Like I did a video on him, and like I didn't know he actually played the outfield earlier in his career.
He played third base. He played outfield. He played all over the place.
I know because the only thing I could think of Pujols is like a big first baseman because that's what I've always accustomed to seeing throughout his career.
Yeah, I mean he came up in the infield with Placido Polanco. In fact, I think he changed positions so that Polanco had a job. So they go way back, and Blanco is actually the godfather to one of his children, even. So it goes back to their days with St. Louis. Yeah,
and look, I mean, dude's probably going to be a Cardinal for as long as he can. If you want to retire right now, be in the Hall of Fame, I would retire as a Cardinal because that's where a majority of my career stood.
I think that would be the case.
And the same, and that's the thing too. Like, because recently I've been starting to get interested in these Japanese leagues and the players that are coming over. Like, Akiyama. Well, Akiyama was really not that kind of player that I paid attention to. Ohtani, I paid attention to. Kenta Maeda when he was actually really good in Japan. Before he with the Dodgers when he came to the Dodgers. Ohtani. It's just like there's something to be said. Like I'm speechless of how much he's accomplished, despite the fact for a Japanese-born player which we haven't really seen in the last 100 years. Not to mention breaking Hideki Matsui's record for most home runs of the season. Like I was just like, it just blows my mind. Like how now, obviously, that's a rare nowadays. Like you don't see really too. I mean, obviously, Babe Ruth is probably the last one people mostly can remember. Obviously, he was always, being one of the better hitters of all time, even though he was really not that much of a good pitcher back then. But it's pretty. I mean, it's just pretty cool to see, Ohtani being there in that kind of company with Babe Ruth and what he has accomplished as a two-way player in the modern age of baseball.
Yeah, you didn't think you'd ever see one of those again. I mean, even Babe Ruth eventually moved off of the mound, so we'll see how long you get both.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's about it. But do you have any final thoughts before I end today's show?
Well, I'll bring it back to the Phillies. They go 2-4 after that long win streak against some tough teams. You'd hope that they would have at least gone 3-3 for this 6-game stretch. They got to take care of business in Arizona, but
I mean,
the
it should be that too much that hard.
I
I
expect
get.
the Braves to go on a little bit of run this next week or two because they're not playing some good teams. So the Phillies got to take advantage of the Diamondbacks.
Oh
They got
yeah,
to take care of some business in San Diego, and then if they can, then they got a real shot at this thing. But if they don't,
I think at best is a wild card.
well, they either win the division or not. The Phillies aren't going to make this wild card, so they're too
I'm really
buried.
hoping the division because I think at this point it's going to come down to us or the Braves.
Yeah, Mets are done. Braves will go streaking, and the Braves will face these good teams later.
Yeah,
But
we'll just
but
wait and see.
yeah, this will be a little bit up and down, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a pretty interesting season. Obviously, with a lot of soft tissue injuries, which I mean, MLB really needs to really, and not to mention with the foreign substance too. Like I forgot to mention this too. It's like, because as a baseball fan growing up, I lived through the steroid era. Now it's just like I'm just thinking to myself, it's like I kind of okay. So number one, like I understand why I want to crack down on it. But number two, like here on the Northeast, like you're not going to, especially up here, like New York, Boston, like when it gets cold, like, and I'll just say this from personal experience, it's hard to grip the baseball. Like it really does. Like I played in like, the one funny story is like actually played in sleep, and like I could not grip the baseball, and we actually used thick seam baseballs, and
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't grip it. Like so, I was just like, I was like, damn, like what am I going to do? Like I literally had to cover my hand in dirt to really get get tacky because at the time I was still sweating, so I had to try to mix that, get my own concoction going.
You know
So
what? I think what needs to happen is someone needs to invent a substance. Maybe it'll be me, and I make millions of dollars.
I
But
really hope
somebody
so.
should invent the substance that is the officially approved MLB grip substance, and everybody can use it.
I
I
mean,
think that's what you
obviously,
need. I think that's what you need to do.
yeah, I was thinking the same thing because like
Frank juice.
obviously, yeah, but obviously with the old school way of doing things is now was rosin and sweat. I mean, I've seen
Yeah,
Eric, like, and I've really, and Eric Simon, who also watched on YouTube as well. He kind of broke down, how much RPMs can you get with foreign substance. Like, I think with sunscreen and rosin, I think you get like a little couple upticks, but the most upticks you can probably get is on spider tack. I
yeah,
mean, which everyone that's like at the time because
yeah. That
I
was for
didn't
the
know what.
bodybuilders, so that they wouldn't their grip wouldn't slip off their
Really, so
what they're
that was
lifting.
really so that's what it was used for.
Yeah, that's how it was. That's what it was invented for. So
Oh,
that
okay,
because obviously you have heavy weights, they slip out of your fingers, you could hurt somebody.
yeah, that's true.
So that was the idea behind this, and then baseball players got at it. So, but yes, I'm going to invite Frank Tack or Frank Juice, whatever you want to call it, and it will be the approved substance, and I will make millions of
Oh
dollars.
yeah, but Frank, I want to say thank you for coming on. Talking about this, for the Phillies baseball, and just baseball news in general and all that. I want to, I mean, it really, it's like I've been trying to get some like different reporters on, but I just sent you on Twitter. So I was like, you want to come on? So I said, sure. I was like, okay, let's do
Yeah,
it.
happy to do it. I was always enjoyed talking baseball.
Yeah. So well, yeah. I mean, I want to say thank you for coming on, and hopefully we can try to at least do this more of these soon. Try to break down more like I say the postseason and stuff like that. Give our thoughts and stuff like that.
Yep, keep in touch, and I'm sure we'll catch up again.
Oh, definitely. All
Sounds
right.
good.
Yep. All right. I'm going to be hopping out.
Well, have a good one now.
You too, Frank.